The Man Booker Prize is the Super Bowl, the Wimbledon, the US Open, and the World Cup for book nerds everywhere. Now, if you're one of those people, you want to stay with me because I just created a brand new set of questions all about the Man Booker Prize, and it's full of imagination and fun. Unlike the first version that somebody else created way back in 2015. This is fresh because I just created these questions. I can't even wait to answer my own questions that I just created. Right? That's how excited I am. So, like a child, I know you want to play along with me. So, if you're a YouTube creator, make your own videos because tag, you're it. The Man Booker Prize is one of the most prestigious literary prizes in the world. It started in 1968. Its winner gets £50,000. Now, it's not really about the money, although the money has changed the lives of many people. Alan Hollinghurst has talked about it. I know it made a huge impact for Hilary Mantel at a time when she really needed it. And I'll be talking about that later. But the thing I love about the Man Booker Prize is that for a brief spell of time, especially in England, it raises the profile of literature, especially literary fiction. So between July, when the long list is announced, and October, when the winner is announced, we get to read a lot of books that we might not read, especially the lay people, right? People who might not really read serious fiction might read something about it in the Guardian website or on TV. They might hear something on TV or radio and they will go and buy these books. So book sales for literary fiction increases during that time. That I love that. And also book clubs become more interested in these books. Also, this is why one of the reasons why I created this brand new version 2 of a Man Booker Prize tag. Now, all these questions are really for my fellow booktubers and author tubers. But what I also want to happen is this. You might not be a video maker. That's okay. What I want you to do is look at the set of questions in the description. And if you're a member of a book club, have a discussion about it, right? Maybe for 1 month, for one session, instead of discussing whatever you're supposed to be discussing, take these questions and have fun because this can provoke a lot of debates. And it's all about raising the profile of Man Booker Prize among us, the readers, the lovers of serious works of literature. I know that sounds pretentious, but I think there are times when we do need serious literary fiction. Literary novels don't really sell that well, but between July and October, there's sales, the sales numbers do increase. So let's all help one another and let's have fun reading these great books. Now, I love Alan Hollinghurst's The Line of Beauty. I dream that I wish I could write like Alan Hollinghurst. That's a great, as a Henry James fan, I just really love what he had done there. And this is the book that I have read at least twice so far. And every time I'm just amazed by what he can do with sentences. But the book that means the most to me right now, every day, is Thomas Keneally's Schindler's List. Back then, when it won, it was called Schindler's Ark. And what I love about it is the way it fuses fact and fiction. Now, this is relevant for me because right now I'm working on a novel called Teardrop Island, which is set in the Sri Lankan Civil War, and it's part of a series of novels about that war as experienced by children. And now, one shouldn't compare the Holocaust with any other conflict. Holocaust is the worst thing that had ever happened. At the same time, I'm learning a lot by studying a lot of great novelists and novels who have written about the Holocaust. And this is one of the greatest works about the Holocaust. So, and that's the main thing. I can't ignore it. It teaches me so much about it. And also Thomas Keneally is also a great role model when it comes to work ethic, the craft of storytelling. I've seen a lot of interviews with him on YouTube. And I'll put a link below to some of them. Because if you're interested in writing novels that also combines real events, because Teardrop Island combines real events and my own imagination to tell a story, a bit like this one. So this means so much to me. So every time I read this or read a passage, and I feel so, damn, I wish I could write like this, or I wish I had written this kind of novel, and that it has to be this one. Now, every therapist in the world would advise you not to compare yourself with anyone else, right? But it's human nature for us to compare. Envy and jealousy are natural human emotions. The main thing is we control them. So there is a Man Booker Prize winner that I really envy, and that's Eleanor Catton. Because why? Because in 2013, with her second novel, The Luminaries, she became the youngest novelist to win the Man Booker Prize. Right? What this meant was that she got the money, but more importantly, she gained enough financial security just to focus on writing novels. And I think that's something that all of us, all aspiring novelists, dream about, because we want to do nothing but write novels 5 or 7 days a week. But most of us have to do other things to pay the bills and so on. But with Eleanor Catton, she got that, plus the film rights, so the TV rights were sold. So she became financially secure. But Eleanor, if you're watching this, I used to tweet her. I never got a reply, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I think the money is sufficient for you to just focus entirely on writing novels, which is my dream and a lot of people's dream, just writing novels. And so that's what I envy. And also she has the right attitude for writing novels as well. Now, there is a part of me that wants to go back to 1998 and change the result, because the person who won it in 98 was Ian McEwan for this novel, Amsterdam. And there was a lot of debates going around at the time whether is it a novel or is it a novella. I would say it's a novella because of the length, which is under 50,000 words. To me, that's not a novel. Even if it's a young adult novel, even if it's a young adult story, I wouldn't call it a novel if it's under 50,000 words, right? I'm quite obsessed about word counts. Even though everything should be about quality and not quantity, word counts do matter. Well, anyway, so this one won, but I felt as though, and a lot of other people thought, that Beryl Bainbridge should have won for a novel called Master Georgie, which was also a slender novel, but it was quite brilliant in terms of technique and also the time, the setting. So I would go back and change it. But the thing is, Beryl Bainbridge, although she never lived to see herself winning the Booker Prize or the Man Booker Prize, she did get a posthumous prize. And in that year, she did win a lot of other prizes for Master Georgie. So what I want to do is go back in time to 2001. Right? 2000 was a really good time in literature. But why? Because there was a novel called Atonement. Right? There wasn't a lot of marketing behind it, but there was a lot of word of mouth for it. And everywhere I went, people were talking about it, people were reading it on buses and trains, and book clubs featured it. And at the same time, Peter Carey had his novel out, The True History of the Kelly Gang. Again, an equally good novel. And I felt as though it was like a competition between Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic in tennis, Wimbledon. So we got the Wimbledon final. These two giants in tennis are competing with each other, except in 2001, it was between Peter Carey and I nearly said Roger Federer with Ian McEwan. Now, Roger Federer, to me, is not just a tennis player. He's a work of art. And with Ian McEwan, I thought Atonement should have won, right? Atonement should have won because although I liked the true history of the Kelly Gang, and I loved the technical accomplishment of it and what it meant for Peter Carey to write that novel about Australia, but living in New York, and I loved that. And I do love Peter Carey, but in that year, I felt it should have gone to Atonement because that novel, now this is something that we went on to study at university as well. And I remember being in a seminar, about 30 people. Everybody loved this novel, but there was one thing I said that a lot of people disagreed, which is that Atonement, what I love about Atonement, it's a great novel about guilt and about using storytelling as redemption or atonement. And I said to the group that I think to be a great novelist, you need to be wounded. You need to be damaged in some way. And Brian A. Tallis, the protagonist, initially is from a comfortable background. but then she becomes a damaged figure, and she has to become a novelist, a great novelist, to somehow atone herself. And I love that journey. And when I finished reading that novel, I was in tears. And then I remember talking to a lot of other people. I remember talking to somebody who was really close to Ian McEwan. I'm not going to mention that person's name. And he said to me, from this moment onwards, Ian McEwan doesn't have to worry about money anymore. Right? And I said, I thought he was already secure. And he said, no, but Atonement is making huge money. And then, of course, he didn't win, but he had a lot of good fortune, deserved to have it, because the movie was then adapted by the great playwright Christopher Hampton into a really great film. And I watched that again, completely amazed by it. And so I would go back in time and give it to Atonement because it has a lot of personal significance. And I think if you're an aspiring novelist or established novelist who loves studying the craft of storytelling, Atonement is magnificent for that. And to me, in some ways, Ian McEwan is the Roger Federer of fiction because he can do so many things. And so I'm really excited by that. And also, if you're into screenwriting and screen adaptation, Christopher Hampton's screenplay, a playwright who can also write great screenplays, that's amazing. So read both of those and watch the movie. It is amazing. So that's the thing that I would correct. Now, this again feels like having to choose between Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. And now I do love Ian McEwan. I learn a lot from him. But the ones who means the most to me right now is Peter Carey. Because why? I remember listening to the interview back in 2003, September 2003, and he was there to promote his 8th novel, My Life as a Fake. And I still got the notes. Because I'm the kind of nerd who takes notes during a radio interview. Do you do that? Well, anyway, and he said, and it was so inspiring. He said that he wrote 6 novels before a novel that got published. So in 1981, he published a novel called Bliss. But before that, 6 novels that were failures. And I remember hearing that and I thought, wow, that's somebody who's truly determined to succeed. And from then on, if you look at his body of work, now this afternoon, I was at a library and I went past the C section and that was on my eye level, and I couldn't believe it. All the novels that Peter Carey had written were there, and I thought, what a great body of work. And they're all different. That's the amazing thing. And he is trying something different with each novel. And the other thing I love about him, and this relates to me in some ways, is that Germaine Greer once said, another great Australian who went away to realize her true potential, and she said that one of the things she admires about Peter Carey is that he had to go away from Australia and live in New York to write a great novel like The True History of the Kelly Gang, because it gave him distance and time. And I think with a few delusions of grandeur, I had to, in some ways, get away from Sri Lanka, that horrible place of civil war and death and genocide, to come to England. And with all that time, I'm able to see that country in a different way. Distance and time has given me a different way of looking at it. And Peter Carey is similar in that sense. And every single novel is great. And now he won the first Man Booker Prize, his first Man Booker Prize for this one, Oscar and Lucinda, then again in 2001. And I think he's one of those people who's on a hat trick, just like J.M. Coetzee and Hilary Mantel. He could get a third. So I would always be looking forward to his next novel. He inspires me because of the technique, his attitude to writing, so many things. And I have a photo of him where I write, just to remind me that even if I have to write 6 novels to get to a stage where a novel gets published, I'm ready for that. And I think the lesson that you can learn, if you're not familiar with Peter Carey, is that, and if you want to be an author, is that you need to have not just the talent, but that resilience and fortitude to just keep going and to keep learning with each novel. And that's one of the reasons I love Peter Carey. He makes me excited and inspired about literature and also about the craft of storytelling. For importance, I'll give it 10 out of 10 because usually I read a lot of genre novels, screenplays for feature films and TV pilots and stage plays. So it's only between July and October, I get to hear about it. I might read about it in the Guardian website or hear about it on BBC Radio 4. So then I will get a book and read it. Get a Man Booker Prize long listed novel and read it. So that season is really important. That Man Booker Prize season between July and October is really important. And I think usually the publishers and the marketing team at Man Booker Prize, they do a good job promoting it. So we get to hear about it. So that's really important. That particular time is really important in my picking books to read, because without it I might not read that many number of literary novels. It has to be Hotel du Lac by Anita Bruckner. I went through a phase a long time ago when I was reading a lot of novels by quintessentially English novelists, and Anita Bruckner was one of them. So I knew it won the Booker Prize, so I thought I'll read it. And I found it, I just got really bored with it, with the setting, the style, prose style, and everything. And I didn't even finish it. So in fairness to Anita Bruckner, maybe it was a great novel. I just got disappointed. I was just annoyed. And also when I looked at the history behind Hotel du Lac winning the Man Booker Prize, it turns out that in that year there were other shortlisted novels which have now become two of my favorites of all time. One of them is Julian Barnes's Flaubet's Parrot, and the other one is J.G. Ballard's Empire of the Sun. Empire of the Sun means so much to me, and its sequel, Kindness of Women, because J.G. Ballard was if you don't already know his life story, he was born, he was an English boy, but not born in England, but he came to England when he was about 12 years old. I came to England when I was 13 years old, fleeing an Asian country, like J.G. Ballard. Again, I have a few delusions of grandeur here, but just go with it. So he comes here, and the whole story is about his experiences, the first part of his life. I loved the novel. I then read Tom Stoppard's adaptation into a feature film with Steven Spielberg, which stars a young Christian Bale who went on to become Batman, right? So it's a great story, great novel. That one didn't win. Flaubet's Parrot didn't win, but instead Hotel du Lac, this boring novel, won. So I was annoyed, but in fairness to Anita Bruckner, I think to enjoy a novel like that, you need to be a certain age and maturity. And I don't think I'm at that stage. I think when I'm about 70 years old, and if I read Hotel du Lac, I'm retired and I'm just relaxing, I would probably enjoy it. But I just didn't care. I have a paperback copy of it somewhere here. Can't even bother to find it. I can't even be bothered to find that novel because I just don't care right now. But I do think, but it just annoyed me. I would love to date Hannah from The English Patient. This is one of my favorite novels of all time, which also happened to have won not one but two Man Booker Prizes. But the thing I love about Hannah is that she encapsulates the art of storytelling. And I think I'm biased in some ways because his prose style is the equivalent of great cinematography in cinema. For example, my favorite cinematographer of all time is Roger Deakins. So a movie like Fargo or Sicario or Blade Runner 2049, you watch that, it's just so beautiful to watch. And when I read a novel by Ondaatje, especially this one, you feel so you're watching a movie unfold, and it's amazing. And it's just truly amazing. And the Hannah, the character, I love being in her presence and you seeing this world through that. It is a complex story, but I just love it so much. And sometimes I reread passages there. And in the movie adaptation, a brilliant screenplay by Anthony Minghella, Juliette Binoche played Hannah and won an Oscar. And I want to read a passage here from this novel, which encapsulates why I love her, because it's not just her, but what she stands with regards to this whole craft of storytelling. She entered the story knowing she would emerge from it feeling she had been immersed in the lives of others, in plots that stretched back 20 years, her body full of sentences and moments, as if awaking from sleep with a heaviness caused by unremembered dreams. I love that. I would love to date Eleanor Catton for all the reasons I already gave for another question. Long time ago, I used to tweet Eleanor Catton, and she never replied. She just ignored me. Eleanor, how could you do that? Well, anyway, I then gave all my attention to Taylor Swift. I tweeted Taylor Swift. And guess what happened? I got a whole play out of it, and that has changed my life. So I don't mind you ignoring me, Eleanor. But now, for the sake of this question, I'm going to pick you because Eleanor Catton is fiercely intelligent, funny from all the interviews I've seen of her on YouTube. And I love her attitude to the novel. It is an important art form. To me, it's the most important art form for storytelling, superior to the TV pilot or the feature screenplay. I write both of them, but the novel is what I love. And she loves the Sand. And she also said in interviews that she loves watching box set TV. Who doesn't? I also do a lot of that and call it studying. And I think when we're dating, we could just have a great time. We could just have a great time watching, I don't know, binge watching Breaking Bad for the fourth time, the whole series, and do things like that. So it would be a fun relationship. I love being with women who are erudite, funny, intelligent, classy, stylish, and Eleanor Catton is all those things. The only obstacle, there are two obstacles. One obstacle is that Eleanor Catton is married, and more worryingly, she is happily married. So this is just going to be a fantasy. And the second reason is that Eleanor Catton is born under the sign of Libra, right? I am born under the sign of Cancer. If you read the luminaries, you'll know that Eleanor Catton loves astrology, horoscopes, all that. I love that too. And everybody knows that astrology is 100% accurate, of course. So according to astrologers, a Cancerian man won't last long with a Libran woman. Your mind jumped, didn't you? I didn't mean lasting long as in what you thought. I mean in a relationship. So a Cancerian man and a Libran woman might last about anything between 6 months to 2 years. So that's what I call a short-term relationship, right? So I shouldn't think big about this. I shouldn't think about marriage with Eleanor Catton. But I think a short-term relationship, date her for 2 years, that would be great. We'll be a good influence on each other. I think she will inspire me in many ways. So Eleanor Catton is the one I would love to date. I would love to have Hilary Mantel as my best friend. In 2004, I read her memoir, Giving Up the Ghost. This is the first thing I ever read by her. And I still remember that moment. I was on the top deck of a bus that went from Mill Hill to North Finchley. And there was a passage there just made me cry. And I was so embarrassed. There was a lot of people on the top deck. And as you know, big boys don't cry, right? And I didn't want anyone to see me cry. And I was so embarrassed. And I just tried to hide myself. But then I realized, forget it. Let's just give in to whatever she had to say. I was completely inspired by this book. So I then went on to read other novels like Flood and Vacant Possession. And what happened was, at that time, I was working in a supermarket in North London. And it was a horrible job. My job was to fill the shelves of a meat department. I'm a militant vegetarian. I hate meat, right? So while I was working in that supermarket that I hated, I heard that Hilary Mantel was at Middlesex University in North London teaching creative writing course, a master's degree. Now, I don't think much of master's degree courses. Philip Roth once said, if you want to write novels, just write novels. Don't take master's degrees. I'm with him on that. And he said that after teaching a few master's degree courses in the United States. But anyway, when I heard that Hilary Mantel was a guest tutor on one of these courses, I thought, if I had the money, I would love to take that course just to be in her presence, because after this and a few of the other novels, I also realized that she was a mid-list author. She was one of those people who was struggling with money. So she had to do lots of other jobs like writing freelance work for newspapers like The Guardian. And I remember reading a lot of her reviews and essays in that newspaper. Loved her work, but at the same time, in 2009, she released Wolf Hall, and everyone knows that changed her life. And then she won again the Man Booker Prize with Bring Up the Bodies. And I just love her journey. She's another great example of resilience and fortitude against so many obstacles. This memoir tells you about the other real obstacles in her life. And I think you'll find it inspiring. If you haven't read it, and if you like reading about the life of men and women who went on to become great novelists. This is one of those memoirs you must read. And I keep it on my desk upstairs where I write, again to remind me. Amazing woman. And I think it would be great to have her as a friend. I love Wolf Hall and the sequel, and I can't wait to read the third novel in that trilogy. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I could learn so much from her. So Hilary Mantel will be my best friend for life. The best novelist not to have won the Man Booker Prize so far has to be Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think it's a crime that she hasn't won it so far. Back in 2007, she had Half of a Yellow Sun. Right? That novel wasn't even longlisted. That's a crime. Right? That's a really important novel about the Nigerian civil war that took place in the late 1960s. And instead, that year's Man Booker Prize went to Anne Wright's The Gathering. Half of a Yellow Sun is a far superior novel on so many different reasons. And it's really annoying that it didn't win. However, Chimamanda doesn't need to win the Man Booker Prize. Chimamanda doesn't need the Man Booker Prize, but the Man Booker Prize does need Chimamanda because it can lift the prize to a different level. We are yet to see an African woman win the Man Booker Prize. That has never happened. A black male writer has won it once. That was Ben Okri with The Famished Road. And I think it would have been really inspiring for her to win it, and it could have won on merit in that year, but it didn't. It didn't even get on the long list, which is a real shame. But she has won so many other prizes. That novel did win the Orange Prize for Fiction in 2007, but it didn't win the one I think was really important, which is the Man Booker. However, she inspires me in a different way. If you're not already familiar with the work of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I recommend you start with Purple Hibiscus and then the others. And also watch a lot of YouTube interviews and speeches. She's an amazing speaker, really inspiring speaker. And she's given 2 TED Talks, and I'll put the links to those below if you haven't seen them. One of them is about the art of storytelling. The other one is about feminism. Both really important and inspiring. It doesn't matter who you are. So I recommend, if you're not already familiar with Chimamanda's work, get into her. She truly inspires me. I predict that she will become the first African female writer to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. It has to happen. It will happen. She's too important. And I'm always just moved when I'm talking about her. Yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine who's also from Africa, and we were talking about how much we love the impact that Chimamanda has made, especially in England and the United States. She's iconic in both countries and probably in Africa as well. But somehow the Man Booker Prize Committee just hasn't recognized her. But I think her time will come. And I'm sure we would see her winning the Man Booker Prize. But so she's the one I think who's criminally neglected so far. I love Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Thomas Keneally's Schindler's List. Too many times when you talk about film adaptations, we never really appreciate the work done by the screenwriter. In this case, Steven Zaillian. That screenplay is a masterclass in screenwriting and also obviously screen adaptation. I remember reading it in 2015 to study, and I was completely exhausted emotionally by its brilliance in telling a story. And I understood a different aspect of that story because of Zaillian's focus on one particular aspect. That's a different issue. But the adaptation is amazing, and also what Steven Spielberg had done with it. To me, I still remember watching that movie for the first time on the first Saturday of its release at a cinema in Hertfordshire with my friend from my school days, Andrew. We knew each other since I was 13 years old, and we went there to watch. And it was a Saturday afternoon. Usually in that area, the cinemas are usually maybe about 3 or 4 people in there. But on that Saturday afternoon, it was packed. The cinema was packed, and within about 10 minutes, there were some people were leaving because they were crying, they were sobbing. And then we stayed right till the end, and it was complete silence. Everyone waited right till the end of the credits. So much silence. And I left the cinema, and I told Andrew, and I said, that's what I want to do. That's the kind of impact that I want to have on people, because it was so important. Even to this day, my favorite movie of all time is Schindler's List. Whenever I'm on a date with somebody, I always ask, okay, what's your favorite movie? What's the greatest movie ever made? And we ended up talking about films. And I always ask, have you seen Schindler's List? If she says she hasn't seen Schindler's List, that's it. Even in this house, if I have a woman and she says, and we start talking about movies, and she says, I haven't seen Schindler's List, that's the moment I say, oh, get out. I don't know. That's how important that movie is to me. It's an amazing adaptation. And I think anyone interested in, as I said before, and I've said this to so many people, if you're interested in a great novel and how that becomes a screenplay and then a movie, Schindler's List is a masterclass in all those things. It's amazing, and it's also one of the most successful adaptations of a Man Booker Prize winning novel, probably up there with The Life of Pi, Ang Lee's adaptation. So that has to be, Schindler's List is the one. I love it, and I've seen it so many times now. Firstly, I would have this party at J.K. Rowling's beautiful house in Perthshire in Scotland. I've never been there. I'm not a stalker, but this is what I know. She lives there, beautiful house. Why J.K. Rowling? Because I think this is a good time to talk about literature versus genre novels, because any of those Harry Potter novels could have been nominated for a Man Booker Prize, at least on the long list. I'm pretty sure none of them were nominated. And this gives us a chance to talk about what is literature. When I was at university, we did study the first novel, Harry Potter novel, and we had these debates about what is literature, what is the genre novel, what is storytelling, all that. So I'll phone Joe, because in this scenario we are good friends. So I'll phone Joe and say, I want to have a party. Can we have it in your place? Of course she'll say yes. And then we'll have a party there. So the first person to invite would be my girlfriend, Eleanor Catton, and then my bestie, Hilary Mantel. Then I would pick Peter Carey, because I have a lot of questions to ask about the craft of storytelling and other things related to novels. So this is the bunch who would spend a good intimate time, because I think small parties are better than when you've got 20 people. I don't like that. But with a small group, you can get to know, you can get to spend a lot of quality time with each of them. And then, but I would actually say no politics, no talk of politics. Because I had experience of parties in North London where I go. Someone will always start ranting about Donald Trump, and everyone argues, and it just spoils the moment, or about Brexit. So in my party, this is my party, and I'm sure Joe would agree with me. Okay, no politics. We're just going to have fun, and we're going to talk about novels and writing, the things we love, and pop culture. And I would also have a quiet with Hilary Mantel and say, just don't talk about Kate Middleton, because she did this speech about her, you might remember, and I think it did upset Kate. So I will say, Hilary, we love you, I love you, but let's not talk politics, because any talk about the royalty or the monarchy is politics, although you could say she has the right to talk about it, but not now. This is my party. I don't want arguments. So, and I think because I'm going to be leading it, we're all going to have a good time. So that will be my party. So this is Man Booker Prize tag version 2.2, and I'm sure you agree this is a far superior version to the first version, and I hope it gets everyone talking about Man Booker Prize in a fun way, and it will get a lot of people debating about lots of other things. I hope that happens on BookTube and AuthorTube and in the real world in book clubs. That's what I want, because literary fiction, the sales of literary fiction is always it's always a struggle, and I think we need the Man Booker Prize every year. And I also think that plenty of people do these videos. I'm going to tag a few people, but in reality, I'm tagging everyone who's able to make a video and answer these questions, have fun. I'm going to tag a few people, watch the end credits to see who you are. Now, if you feel that this video has given you value in terms of information, education, entertainment, and motivation, do please subscribe to my channel. There'll be more throughout this summer until October. I'm going to be making more videos about the Man Booker Prize, looking at different themes from different angles. So if you're into Man Booker Prize, subscribe to it. I am also doing plenty of other stuff on this channel. So please subscribe. If if you are already a subscriber, thank you for subscribing. You really do have exquisite taste.